Dude, so, oh, excuse me. I've just been putting up some stuff about being an occult nun, and then something fell in my feed on Instagram about the Pendle Hill witches. And anyone who knows me, and I've talked about this many times, and even on my old Instagram, I have always wanted to do a Pendle Hill witch tour, including the castles and where they executed people after they were tried at the castle of Lancashire Castle. Sorry, and do the Hill witch tour, just like I want to do the same in Salem, and I want to go and explore all the witchcraft trials and that with the hangings at St Giles Court in Edinburgh, and the Heart of Midlothian where they hung all the witches and executed all the people after trial, and all the executions that took place for the hanging of witches in Ireland and in that as well, because they did it all over England, Ireland, and Scotland. I'm assuming Wales as well, but I don't know of too many famous witch trial cases in Wales, but I would definitely explore it when I was ready. So one of the things that I want to do before I leave, I'm really, really hoping before I leave the UK, I can do a tour and go to all the places that I've always dreamed of going. My boys and I made a huge list years ago of all the places we wanted to visit in the world where I could investigate them and then use my ability in that to stop the paranormal activity and to clean up some myths and folklores regarding the anomalies and paranormal supernatural activity, and recorrect the imbalances of our knowledge of the supernatural and paranormal and the occult, and that so that we could all be on the same page. And as a high priestess and alchemical astronomical physicist, I'm the person to do it, right? So before I knuckle down and get the foundation built and get it all up and running and all that sort of thing, and then govern the foundation, I want to make my shows. I really want to make my shows. You're not going to see me much on camera because it's not about me, it's about the education and information of what it is that I'm sharing. And it started with me going around all the National Trust places that you'll see on my channel. When I was going to the National Trust places and turning my camera on to see what I could see, because it helps me delve into the side of history that nobody else sees. And then I'm able to find answers and pull them out in order to be able to re-educate people on what death actually is, and what hauntings and ghosts and that really are, and what the occult and things like witchcraft actually is. Because unfortunately, when religion came about, they did their absolute best to make sure that witches and seers and sages and alchemists and cunning men and women and apothecaries and healers and herbalists and naturopaths and that were deemed as being evil. And when you have a look, and the links in the description box below the Wikipedia page about the Witch of Endor in the Bible, and you see how, like the Jewish faith saw her compared to how the Christians saw her, it's like chalk and cheese. Like the Jewish people knew exactly who she was and what she was and what she was capable of and who she was doing it for, whereas Christians turned her into something to be feared. Catholics and Christians turned her into something demonic and evil. And the Christian faith and the Catholic faith made the supernatural a sin against God. And it is absolutely the antithesis of what God is trying to teach in regards to the occult. And because I've read the Bible and I understood the codes, and it's like God absolutely does not have any problem with people practicing the occult, but you have to be ordained by him. You have to have his permission to access it. There are plenty of prophets in the Bible who have the support of God, who had the support of Jesus. I mean, Jesus himself was in a scene, and a scene is like a magician, like an alchemist and a magician. That's why he could turn water into wine, and a loaf of bread to feed the 500 and all that sort of thing. He knew how to use alchemy and magic, as did King Solomon. And that's why the church, the Catholic Church and the Christian faith and all that, hid all the Book of Enoch and the missing chapters to the Book of Moses and all that, because it was teaching you how to do what I can do, and teaching you how to be, like, to harness your inherent supernatural abilities. But it can only be trusted to certain bloodlines. Because can you imagine if the Trumps or the Musks had access to the sort of things that I have access to? We'd never get out of Dante's Inferno. So one of the things that I want to do is, obviously, before I go, I want to do a tour of Great Britain and make my little the Mystery Inside History shows, and recorrect all these mythologies and misunderstandings on these urban legends and folklores, and the part of history that was written by the people who didn't want you to know the truth. And as an occult physicist, my area of expertise is anything to do with the paranormal and the supernatural, which is the left and right of the occult. The occult has two scales on the fulcrum: the paranormal and the supernatural, and faith and psychology hold the scales up. So one of the things that my ex promised to do was to take me on a Pendle Hill witch tour. And just when we were about to do it, we had the second lockdown. And then when we were finally able to go, because he knew that it's been like my lifelong dream, it's like on my bucket list to do a Pendle Hill witch investigation, as well as like a Salem witch trial one and the ones up in Scotland. And like, honestly, I have a list as long as my arm of all the places that my boys and I wanted to go, so that we could have fun and investigate and learn some history, and also because I could teach the boys how to use my products, because they're my sons, so it's good for them to know this stuff. My boy Thomas has already helped a lot of people online when he used to watch his haunting videos, and that I've told you about it before. And so when I finally got the chance to go to Pendle Hill, he didn't take me to any of it. In fact, I had to sit and watch him climb a hill. He took me to Pendle Hill. Mind you, the drive from Wakefield to Pendle Hill was absolutely breathtakingly, stunningly gorgeous. That part of the north of England is nothing short of breathtaking. Absolutely stunningly, breathtakingly gorgeous. So the drive was worth it. But once I finally got there, he suddenly didn't know where to take me and where to go. So let's just climb a hill. So basically, he used my bucket list dream to make me stand there and watch him climb a hill. Because there was this famous, the Pendle Hill. And it's where the man climbed it and discovered, became a Quaker. The Quaker religion was invented when the man climbed the hill. And so he used it to hill climb and completely squashed my bucket list dream of doing a Pendle Hill witch tour. And he knew it. Like, now I know he did it on purpose. I know he did it on purpose because he knows I can't do those sort of things. And then I got berated the whole time about how lazy I was because I didn't climb the hill. But I have to be, and he knows this, I have to be careful with what I do for exercise because of my hernias. And when you're climbing up a hill, you have to rely on your stomach muscles a lot, to get you up these things. And my stomach my stomach is where is my most fragile for my hernias, and because I have over a 90% chance of developing another hernia, and the last three killed me. I mean, I literally, the only thing that's holding my stomach and most of my intestines in place are meshes. So I have to be really, 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 really careful. And he was poisoning me at the time as well, unbeknownst to me. So I never got to fulfill my Pendle Hill witch fantasy. It's been on my bucket list like my whole life, as with the Salem witch trials and all of them. So, I want to go and investigate the witch trials in Germany and France and that as well, because they had them there too, and I can do a lot to fix it. I can right the wrongs and shame the people who call themselves witches, who don't know what the hell they're doing, who are making it worse for the memory of the people like at Pendle Hill, the cunning women and that who were executed in the north of England and all of that, who were persecuted simply because they were Catholic, or because they knew how to heal people using herbs and plants and stuff, and could speak different languages, like the witches in Scotland. For example, a lot of the reasons why they were persecuted is because in Scotland back in those days, all the Scottish could read and write, and speak at least 4 or 5 different languages. Other than Gaelic, they could speak like French and German and Italian and Latin, and write in it as well. And because they were incredible, like healers when it came to, in the north of England, they call them cunning men and women, but it just means that they knew what they were doing. It's another word for like a seer or a sage, people who know what they're doing. And the word witch means wise. So it's all different names: soothsayers, seers, sages, witches, and that. It's all different names for different categories of people that knew how to work with energy or nature, or were wise enough to see things coming. You know, like for example, just say you've got a sibling, just off the top of my head, and they keep getting into the wrong relationships, and then they meet someone that they're utterly convinced is the one, and it's like, oh, I know where this is going. And you say to them, I'm telling you now, this is going to end at a heartache. He's going to do this, he's going to do that, blah, blah, blah. And she doesn't listen, and then everything you said happens. That's sage wisdom. I'm going to give you some sage advice. That sort of thing, right? Whereas a soothsayer sees it coming, but also knows how to give you the advice to fix the problem. So it's like different categories of wisdom. You know how you have different kinds of doctors in the occult world, in the world of the craft, the wise craft, because witchcraft just means the wise craft, wise woman, wise man. They use their wisdom and knowledge. And when you're talking about France, Germany, Ireland, the Celts, the Picts, the Gauls, the Normans, all that sort of thing, their knowledge came down through the generations of, old wives' tales. When you've got a cold, when you've got a flu, peel an onion, put it on the bottom of your foot, put a sock, tinfoil, glad wrap around it, put your sock on, go to bed, sleep, take the onion off and the flu's gone. That sort of thing. Back in those days, that would have been considered witchcraft. Like if you've got a runny nose, have lemon juice with honey and hot water, that sort of thing. Back in those days, that would have been considered witchcraft. But then you have these ones who have their little covens and they do sacrifices and they have pentagrams and they take from the earth like crystals and Palo Santo and that they're not allowed to be using. These are sacred objects, and crystals, as I keep saying, are the equivalent of taking the organs out of our living planet. It's organ harvesting. So when I get out there and I'm able to make my shows and that, I've got a lot to do. By the time I figure out where I'm moving to and I'm waiting for visas and I'm waiting for things to be built, I've got to get out there and start looking for talent and promoting what it is that I'm doing in order to find the staff and to find the kids who want to sign up to the program. So in the meantime, while I'm writing my books and getting everything sort of sorted, I can make these shows. And then I've got them to put up on my channel. It'll be like the Mystery Inside History will technically be my first TV show. And I'll do everything from the paranormal to the supernatural to, like the witch trials and that. And they're all over the United Kingdom and France and Germany and, Europe and that. So it's important that people learn the truth about what they really were. You have the good ones, you have the bad ones. Just like with anything, you have good Catholics, you have evil Catholics. You have good Christians, you have evil Christians. You have good Jews, you have bad Jews. You have good Muslims, you have bad Muslims. The light and the dark. But I'm here to correct what religion got wrong, because it messes with people's heads, it messes with people's psyche. There are people that take their own lives because of things that they thought were an abomination against God, or because they were told something by their religion or whatever that messed with their head, and it's unacceptable. And the way that they're feared and misunderstood, fear the ones that deserve to be feared, but respect the ones that deserve to be respected. And I'm the person that's going to show you the difference. So basically, if they use a pentagram, walk away, because they don't know what they're doing. If they use any occult practice where they use a pentagram, where they use a pentagram for everything, where they put pentagrams on the ground or anything like that, walk away, because they don't know what they're doing. They absolutely have no idea. If they use crystals, if they burn Palo Santo, walk away. These are people who don't know what they're doing. Now, the good thing is, when I make the first sign, the resurrection of the ninth element, our version of Harry Potter, I'll be able to teach you all of this through Amber's character and through the memory of Amber, who desperately, she wanted to be a necromancer, but she ended up going into nursing. She kind of was a necromancer because of the kind of nursing she went into, but yeah, necromancy was her interest. She loved the whole Harry Potter thing. She would have been a good quote-unquote witch. She would have been doing it from a scientific point of view as well, but she chose to go into nursing. So I'm the only one, like I was saying this morning about it was supposed to be my sister, but it's me. All my sisters were like it. My mum's side of the family, we're all like it. But I'm the only one that took it in the direction that it needs to be taken in. I'm the only one that studied it enough and embraced it enough to turn it into an actual science and now an entertainment empire. Because the best way to teach people, especially people who don't want to sit and read books or learn it for themselves, the best way to teach them is to put it into entertainment. So they're learning as they're being entertained, and then they retain the information without even realising that they're learning. And all people have to know when they sit down and watch my movies and read my books and listen to my shows and that is that everything that I talk about in it when it comes to the craft, alchemy, the occult, all of it is real. You can use it in real life. If it's in my movie or my book or my game or my TV show or whatever, it is based on truth and fact and scientific knowledge and scientific principles. It's real. So they'll be like, holy crap, I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a real thing. I didn't know you could do that. And then people will start giving it a go and seeing that it works, or start following what I'm teaching them and seeing that it works. And then before you know it, it's like the change in dynamic and how people see God and their ancestors and their culture and history and physics and nature and the grand scheme of how the universe works will flip overnight. And then people won't be so sad and scared and afraid and depressed, and mental illness levels, diagnoses and that, it will all drop, because then people will start getting it. But nobody wants to learn sitting in a classroom, other than the students that I will actually have at Amber School of Alchemy. But the majority of people, and of course teaching this stuff to children, that's why I've got Miss Jodine and friends. So anyone that watches my movies, if it's anything to do with the occult and physics and ascensions and faith and God and the universe and the grand scheme of, the cosmos and God consciousness and all that sort of thing, if it's in there, it's the truth, and it's backed by scientific evidence and fact. So they learn being entertained watching a horror movie, or they learn being entertained watching a comedy animated TV series called The Art of Creation. They'll learn all of this stuff just by sitting down and watching telly. But I have to be able to write this sort of stuff that's entertaining, that makes people want to watch it. So, it has to be good comedy. It has to be scary horrors. It has to be stories in that are believable, and not just ridiculous nonsense, because they don't make good movies anymore. They've completely screwed Star Wars. They don't make good movies anymore. So I'm bringing it all back. I'm going to be making the sort of movies that, you watch The Goonies 100 times. I've watched The Goonies so many times. I've watched Gremlins so many times. I've watched Labyrinth so many times. There are some movies that my generation grew up with that we've watched hundreds, maybe even thousands of times, because they're brilliant movies. Nobody makes movies like that anymore. So that's why I put so much care and time and attention into my movie storylines and my video game storylines and that, because it matters to me, because I know that because I'm going to be using biorhythmic engineering to alchemize the lessons that I'm learning, for you to be able to absorb it and take it in and use it in your everyday life, I have a duty of care to make sure that the stuff that you retain from the information I'm putting out is going to be for the best possible outcome for your life, your journey, and your mental health. And unfortunately, because there's so many frauds out there and there's so many liars out there, and we've been taught so much bullshit about what the occult and the craft and that really were, we've got too many people out there that are practicing the wrong thing, preaching the wrong thing, teaching the wrong thing, selling the wrong thing, that's messing with people's understanding of death and the paranormal and the supernatural and everything in between. They're frauds. Anything to get the likes and subscribes and subscriptions and Patreons and get the money in, and they'll tell you what you need to hear if it pays, without giving any thought to the damage that it's doing to that person's psyche by believing the wrong thing about what happens after you die, how we're able to predict things, how we communicate with the universe, how we speak to the planet, all of that. And the church made sure that it started with the execution of the witches, and that the ones that knew how to heal you with the right kind of plants. And nowadays we'd call them herbalists. They became apothecaries, which was the original pharmacists. I mean, Pepsi Cola, for example, that was created by, he would have been called a chemist, as in like a pharmacist. But Pepsi Cola which was developed in New Bern in North Carolina, was an elixir, like a healing elixir. It was like a medicinal herbal drink for you to drink to heal yourself. And then it just took off and became Pepsi, out of Pepsi and Coke, because original Coke used to have cocaine in it. Because remember back in those days, they used to put cocaine in, and even opium into a lot of their medication. But that was when they started bringing chemicals into the system and destroying the mind and the body. Whereas prior to that, it was herbs, snake oil salesman, and that was the start of everything, going from getting away from the original herbalists and apothecaries and witches and that, to pharmaceuticals today. And now, of course, we have the psychiatrists who don't give a shit about where your childhood pain come from. All they care about is giving you the right kind of drug to mess with the chemicals in your brain to stop you from thinking and feeling. I have more respect for psychology, because I've had to study psychology, for psychologists than I ever will psychiatry, because with psychiatry, they only care about what they can do to stop you from experiencing what you're experiencing. Whereas with psychologists, they like to try and get to the root cause of where it's coming from. But there's a fine line between the two, because my form of psychology and studying human behaviour, and paying attention to my environment, I turned it into the ascension sciences, and I know how to cure people from things like mental illnesses and depression and all of that, if they do the work. If you don't do what I tell you to do, you're not going to heal. But if you do what I tell you to do, you're going to heal, and you're going to come out like a superman or superwoman at the end of it. It's just that nobody wants to do the work. It gets too hard when they have to start doing things like being honest. They have to look at themselves and be honest with themselves, and stop lying and tell the truth, and, be honest. Because in order to be able to have access to those kinds of abilities where you become your own form of self-healing, you become your own healer, you never get sick, you stop aging, your hormones reverse, you end up having the kind of dreams and connection to your ancestors and that no amount of money can buy. You will never need a psychic or a medium or a clairvoyant or a paranormal investigator ever again. You will just know things. But in order to have that access, you have to purify your vessel. And that means from changing your diet, to changing the people you're around, to changing what you will and won't accept to be fact and truth, and recorrecting your mistakes. And that means having to be introspective and look at where you've gone wrong in your life and what you need to do to fix that. And people don't want to do that part, because nobody wants to admit that they made mistakes, that they're not perfect. And there's not a single person on the planet that's perfect. Even babies aren't perfect, because babies are born carrying karmic debt. So if we want the next generation of babies to be born with a clear conscience and without carrying karmic debt, it's up to us living now to make sure that the babies that are born after us are born without carrying ancestral karmic debt. And it starts with us. So, but these are all of the things that I'm going to teach, and I'll be able to show you the kind of witches that deserve respect and the kind of witches that don't, throughout history and modern day. And I also understand that there's a lot of witches out there that call themselves witches, that think they're elemental witches, or that think they're white witches. But like I'm telling you, if you use pentagrams and Palo Santo and crystals, you're not. So I know that there's a lot of people out there that think they're doing the right thing, but they're not, because they don't know any better. And they're generally who I'm looking for students at my school. at Miss Amber's School of Alchemy. I'll probably just call it School of Alchemy for short, the School of Alchemy for short, but she's going to be, I'm going to have her face on everything. You can call it Miss Amber's School of Alchemy if you want, because it would be an honour and a privilege for her. A great way to remember her, but we'll probably just call it the School of Alchemy for short. And it's the ones who thought they knew what they were doing, but know that they weren't taught the truth, who want to live the truth and practice witchcraft the way it's supposed to be done, or alchemy, or, because some witches end up as alchemists, or a sorcerer or sorceress. They'll evolve past witchcraft, but they're stuck in witchcraft because they're being taught the wrong thing or they're practicing the wrong thing. But they'll find that once they come to me and I unlock it in them and decalcify in them what needs to be chipped away, they'll find that they were actually born to be a sorceress or a sorcerer, or a warlock, or an alchemist, or a high priest, high priestess. So, yeah. So I've got the links in the description box below, but I'll also put the pictures up from the Instagram and X and that I'm talking about, so you can have a look and see what I'm talking about. But yeah, when I get out of here, man, I really, as soon as I get that word of justice and that, I need to be able to find someone who's willing to drive and stay in hotels and help me work drones and cameras and all of that, so that I can make my little shows and go around to these places where they executed the witches and stuff, and clear up the mistakes that the church made by putting the fear of God into people, so that the church could have control over people's spiritual development and not Mother Earth. So yeah, it's just the thing popped up on my Instagram about Pendle Hill, and I thought, oh, I need to do a thing about that, because I was so close. I was in Salem, but I was only there for like a day, from like the afternoon to like the late morning the next day. So I never got to do any of that stuff. I went to the museum, but I never got to do any of like visiting where it happened and the headstones and all of that sort of thing. And I was in Pendle Hill, I was right there, but I feel like he did it to torture me, to punish me. He used to do stuff like that to punish me. He he knew that there were places that I'd longed to go like my whole life, and he'd let me get like a little taste of it and then yank it away. So all I need is someone who can drive. I'll get a better phone. I'll need to get a new phone, or like a handheld camera even. Get proper microphone. Someone who can do editing, or just drive around the UK for a few weeks, staying in hotels, and I can make my shows, get them edited, put some good theme music up, which my son Thomas was going to help me with. Gabriel was going to do my editing. Thomas was going to do the music. And then, put them up. And it'll be my first TV show, the Foundation's first TV show. Because, remember I said back in the day, Sky TV asked me to submit a tape of me doing my version of Most Haunted. I was supposed to do what do you call it? I can't remember the word. What do you call it? Like not a sample, not a sample. Yeah, they said send in a show it, because they were like, show us how you'd do it. If you were going to do Most Haunted, show us how you'd do it. They said send in a tape, and he sabotaged that whole thing as well. Are you sure you want to be on camera? Because I know you, and you lack confidence, and because of the way you look and you're worried about your weight. And remember, the camera adds 10 pounds. And then when me and my sons had that audition with the TV producer to do the voices for, because I was at that point I was considered a single mum, even though we were living in the same house, we weren't together anymore. And my sons and I had the opportunity to audition for a TV show that was going to be like the Goggle Box, but like Creature Comforts. So it was like stop motion animation animals responding to things they were watching on TV. So it was like the Gogglebox meets Creature Comforts, but it was only supposed to be me and my two sons who were little at the time. And when we finally set up the audition, Chris jumped in and completely took over the whole thing and embarrassed us. Like he was making the sort of jokes where there was just tumbleweed. There was just like dead air, dead silence. He humiliated himself, and my boys and I lost the audition. And then, of course, we had my radio show where it was arranged that his lover, Andy, the one he stole the books with, his mistress, was supposed to be there for 3 months to babysit the boys while I, worked out this radio contract and everything. And after 6 weeks, 6 weeks, they called me back. Andy's going home. Got no one to look after the kids, you got to come back. So I had to walk away from my radio career. I tried to do the shows over the phone where I'd call in to do the show every week, but for some reason, my phone kept cutting out. For some reason, the phone kept cutting out, and it was embarrassing. So I had to walk away from the contract. I'm not unhappy that it happened though, because I didn't know half as much back then as what I know now. But if I was to be given that opportunity again, I would absolutely knock that shit out of the park. So it's like, okay, so with Donald Trump's friends owning all the American Airways and stuff, there's no way I'm going to be able to get back onto radio in America. But it was my son who said, why don't you just do a radio show on the internet? And I was like, oh, can I do that? And I looked into it and I was like, oh my God, I can do that. It's just that I have to wait until I get justice, because if I tried to do that now, guaranteed every time I did a show, Elon Musk and Donald Trump and Starmer would fly their little drone plane over with their DEW and mess with my internet connection. So I can't do any of it until I get justice, because then they're going to be ordered by the courts to leave me the hell alone, because it'll be proven that they were liars and harassing me for no other reason than I know more than them, and calling them out for being murderers and pedophiles and human traffickers and all that. So hang on. So I'll put the link up. Well, the links are in the description box below. I'll put the screenshots up to correlate with this thingy, and yeah, have a look. But yeah, as soon as I get out of here, Pendle Hill's just up the road. If I could just find someone who could just take me up there, then I could do it all. It might not be edited. It might just be me having to pause my count like oh my God, I desperately want to go. I've found some churches in Lancashire as well. A lot of churches and graveyards and that, just like Beliskin Cemetery up in Scotland, where devil worshippers have done animal sacrifices and apparent human sacrifices, like within the last 10, 15, 20 years, and left a stain on the church and that, they're derelict churches. And I can go and fix it. I can clear it all up and energetically remove it all and fix it, and, put a protection on it and put matane clay down and all that sort of thing. And, I want to go to Suicide Bridge, and I talk about this constantly in Glasgow, Overton Bridge, where the dogs were jumping off. I reckon I know why they were doing it, but I'm pretty sure I can fix that as well. That was another place Chris was supposed to take me and never did. So there's a lot of places that I want to investigate before I leave. I just need a driver, someone who's up for the adventure, someone who loves driving, who's prepared to see some of the most beautiful parts of Europe in these little islands of Great Britain. But because, I mean, I'm from New Zealand, and New Zealand's considered the most beautiful country in the world. But there's places in England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales that just make you want to weep. They're so stunning, so beautiful. These parts of like the southern England and that look like Victorian chocolate boxes. When I saw my first like thatched roof houses in Devonshire and Wiltshire and all that, I was like, oh my God, they exist. They were real. Thatched roof houses are real. Cobblestone roads are real. Couldn't believe it. And so I want to like take one last look before I leave, but also go to places that I never got to go because my ex-husband controlled everything, including my joy. So I just need someone who's up for the adventure, who's okay to stay in hotels and, rental properties and stuff like that for a few days at a time, who's up to see Great Britain, who wants to have that adventure, who wants to step into my world. Because he's going to experience some freaky stuff. Like, stuff's going to happen. Inevitably, he's going to see me say and do things that are going to blow his mind. And God willing, my boys will be with me. I even promised them they'd have their own hotel rooms. They'd have their own rooms. They wouldn't have to share with me like in a Premier Inn. If we stayed at a Premier Inn, they'd have their own rooms each. They also get a cut of the money as well. So, yeah, kind of like our way of just de-stressing and having a bit of fun in that before we move to where it is we're going to immigrate to, before I have to knuckle down and do the hard stuff. So, yeah, and the thing is that I can do my radio shows on the road as well, if I wanted to. I can certainly do these, talk about my experiences and stuff. So, yeah. So enjoy, and I'll speak to you later. Ka kite anō.